A key part of getting better at MLB The Show is building the proper lineup. Not only do you have to choose the right players for your team, you have to build the proper batting order and just choose the right sequence of players to use if you want to make a World Series push or however good you want to get at ranked seasons. And a bunch of people submitted lineups through my Discord. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through everyone's lineups, offer advice for the players that everyone's using, and also setting the right order. And hopefully through these tips, we'll get some useful advice in terms of helping us making the right lineups. Let's get into it. Speaking of lineups, in case you guys do not know, we are collabing with Fanduel. Fanduel is a really good fantasy service with daily fantasy sports. And if you guys want to get into fantasy sports, want to give it a go, I've been using it for the last month or so, having a blast with it. If you guys want to check it out, go to my link down in the description, fanduel.com/thescan. If you're on your mobile for the device, hit continue the web for it to go through properly. Make an account through that link and it supports the channel, and I recommend giving Fanduel a go. It's an absolute blast. And without keeping you guys any further, let's get into our lineups and let's break down any tips I have for building the proper team in MLB The Show. So in my Discord, I have a dedicated channel for sharing lineups and getting advice from people in my community about building the proper team. So if you guys want to hop in, you want to get suggestions on your team outside of this video, go hop in my Discord. We have a bunch of people who play MLB The Show and hang out. If you have any questions, if you want to get better at the game, my community does a good job of helping each other out, and everyone's all striving to get better at the game. Definitely check out the Discord if you have not already. And let's look at this first lineup, and let's go through some of my pointers of building the proper team. All right, so this is the first lineup I had submitted, and this is a God Squad lineup. This is someone who has been playing the game a while, as you could tell. One thing I do see here, which is probably worth talking about, 99 Alfonso Soriano is at shortstop out of position. Yes, you could play certain players out of position. If they have good enough fielding, sometimes you could put them in a different position and they get good enough fielding. And according to this person here, Soriano isn't too bad as a shortstop. And with how not great shortstops are right now, I could definitely see putting Soriano out there and him being pretty solid. But do I recommend it myself? I don't know. I haven't tested. But other than that, I'm loving the team. He's got a lot of big bats, Acuna, Buxton, Trout in the outfield. One thing in terms of the lineup structure I want to talk about is the balance of lefties and righties. And why he did a solid job here, the sideness of the hitter, but also there are a lot of righties, and I do want to talk about the top three and the bottom three. There are three righties in a row. That can be an issue, even if you have righties that are better versus righties or better versus lefties being alternated. It's going to be an issue to have this many right-handed hitters. So if this were me, I would be pursuing someone like a Ronnie Mauricio at shortstop or 99 Wander Franco when the new inning program comes out. He was revealed as a boss. He could be a viable shortstop. But just looking to get another lefty bat, maybe replacing Acuna or Buxton with a lefty bat like David Justice. Something to get that lineup a little more balanced. Other than that, I like the team overall, and the lineup is about what I would do if this were me. Other than that, I like this lineup, a very good team. The bench is looking solid as well. Maybe just another righty bat that crushes lefties. A guy like a Troy Gloss or something like that could be a good one. Other than that, I like the bench. Solid team you got here. Another pretty solid God Squad. As you see here, we got a lot of super factors here. Pretty solid team he's got here. He's got the creative player at catcher. He's got that good balance of lefties and righties. Steve Finley playing up to a 99 with the super factor, so that card is probably pretty solid. It's an interesting outfield he has here. I think Finley's defense is good enough to stay in center, but I've been trying to tell people that it's not a bad idea to consider playing Soriano in center. He's got diamond fielding and the high 90s speed. So if you play him in center, he still has that, and even though it's a secondary, he's going to have the best range probably out of those three outfield options. It's just a consideration. Overall, I would say this outfield is fine. Look at the order. I think it looks really good too. I like putting a switch hitter in the 2 spot like he has it. And this is creative player, so he's giving a lot of at-bats for him. Chipper in the cleanup spot. Poppy 5th. About what I would do. And Semien at shortstop in the secondary, also playing up to a 99 with the super factors. I like it. I like it a lot. Again, the only thing I would do with this team, look for a good bench bat versus lefties. I would take that Jimmy Fox and put him on the bench over Gary Sanchez, or maybe include him with Gary Sanchez. I mean, Gary's a good backup catcher. Ernie does a solid job versus lefties, and Acuna is pretty good versus lefties too. But I would replace, say, Ernie Banks with a Jimmy Fox type who crushes lefties. So if you do have to pinch hit versus lefty, you make sure you have your best hitter at the dish. But overall, I like this team a lot. The lineup's very good. A good 10 out of 10. Next, we have another lineup, and this is more of a budget-looking team, and I like talking about these teams because these are a lot of the teams that say a lot of you guys who are watching this video probably are building around. A lot of people who play this game don't have a god squad, say like me, because I play this game all the time. And looking at this team, I like it. He's got the prospect Wander Franco at short. Ryan McMahon is a super good budget B second baseman. Vlad and Turner in the corners is great. Real Muto is an interesting catcher. In the outfield with Shohei, Buxton, and Bichette. Nice little outfield. I like the budget Beast team. If I were to adjust this lineup though, I do have a couple adjustments I would want to make. Buxton is great to stay in the leadoff spot. That works perfectly fine. However, Wander Franco, I would hit in the 2 spot. He's not a power hitter, but he is a switch hitter. Good versus both sides. I like to use the 2nd spot in the lineup for a contacty or just all-around hitter type. And hopefully if I can get a switch hitter or someone good versus both sides, I'll put him in that 2 spot. A lot of real MLB teams like to put their best hitter in the 2 spot. I don't know entirely why it works that way, but you know, you give him some RBI opportunities if the leadoff guy gets on. They also are still hitting often enough each game. So I would probably move Wander there, and I would move McMahon to the 3 spot. But other than that, I like the team. My lineup would be Buxton, Franco, McMahon, Vlad, Shohei, Bichette, Turner, and Real Muto. I would maybe flip Ohtani and Bichette, get Bichette up a little more, put him in the 5 spot, and again, spread those lefties out a little more. Bench isn't bad, I would say. Grisham is a glitchy outfielder. Trey Turner has speed, glitchy swing. Harper crushes righties, and I like that for a bench bat. Nick Castellanos does a good job versus lefties, and Justin Upton probably has the best attributes versus lefties. I would do one thing. I would maybe consider putting a backup catcher just in case you need to pinch run. You do have some speed on the bench. And I would consider another good lefty bat. Harper is good versus righties, but I would consider one more. Maybe replace Trent Grisham with that live series Jesse Winker, and that is a good budget bench bat to have on your team. Overall, I give this a 7 out of 10. I like the team build for the budget beast style teams. Pretty well-rounded team here. All right, so here's the next team, and it's very small, and I don't know what the batting order is, but there are a lot of players out of position, and I think there's one thing we want to talk about with the out of position players. I feel like Tatis may not be terrible in center. I feel like Robert Poisson wouldn't be a terrible first baseman either, but I think this team has a strong lack in power. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, some of these guys are glitchy, but I think you need to use first base. Instead of for Robert Poisson out of position, choose a bigger power bat. Look for someone who has good power numbers versus both sides. It could be that team of Fendi, Jim Thome, who's a great first baseman. There are a lot of good first basemen, even that tops now Ryan Mountcastle. This team is a solid team, but just lacking in power. Also, if you have your created player at shortstop and Tatis in center, wouldn't you think it's a solid idea to get another archetype with like an outfielder primary or even third base primary and just putting them at their primary and playing Tatis at short? Seems a little weird to have Tatis completely out of position when you can move your created player wherever you want, but overall, not a bad team by all means. I mean, I've definitely seen worse. So I'd give it a 6 out of 10. All right, next we have another God Squad, like has his creative player who seems to be a righty, right? He's a righty hitter. I don't know if it's just bugging on the screen, but overall, I'm liking the look on this team. He's got a God Squad. He's got Semien at third. That's an interesting one. We'll talk about that in a second. To top off the lineup, he has Thome on the bench, Mantle and Roberts on the bench, Ronnie Mauricio at short. Interesting team. First of all, the creed player catcher is definitely solid, a good move. I think playing Semien at third and Chipper in left is definitely interesting. I mean, not that Chipper's a bad outfielder. I had said plenty of times if you want to adjust your team to get someone else out in the field, then you could definitely play Chipper in left and look for a bigger power bat at third. Overall, though, I feel like this lineup is lacking some lefties. The only lefty is Poppy, and then there's the Cap and Chipper, who are non-lefties. Oh yeah, and Mauricio too. So not a bad balanced lineup, but if it's for me, I would probably look for a bigger power bat if I were going to play someone at third over Chipper. Maybe like a Longoria, Kyle Seager. I mean, Semien isn't bad. He's definitely a solid bat. But honestly, I would probably consider playing Jackie in left field, play Semien at second, and move Chipper back to that third base spot. Because Jackie has the better speed, he has a secondary in the outfield, and you can play Semien at second perfectly fine. I think that would be more valuable to leave Chipper as primary, especially if you haven't paralleled you'll get the gold fielding. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Just to quickly summarize my points I want to get across, make sure with your lineups, you're balancing in lefties and righties, but also not hitting too many righties in a row. If you have too many righties in your lineup and you have to deal with it, try to balance out their sidedness. So hit a righty who is good versus lefties, then a righty who's good versus righties, and flip-flop that. If you can, balance out the lineup so you don't only have one side of hitters. You face a right-handed starter with a lineup like that, it could be a potential issue. Also, remember, you can play certain players out of position if they're good enough, but make sure you get as many players in their primaries as possible. And then make sure you try to get hitters in your starting lineup that are hopefully good versus both sides as much as possible. That's really a key of building a good balanced lineup. Whether you face a lefty or a righty, you want to make sure your team is good, or at least make sure you have those platoon options on the bench. And overall, hopefully these tips helped you guys making your lineups. I will do this again down the road, I think. So if you guys want to hop into Discord, get lineups shared, hop on in Discord, and we have a ton of people who are offering advice on your teams. But that's going to be it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a great rest of your day. I'll see you all again tomorrow. Deuces.